If you ever feel like you're struggling with motivation or you kind of feel like you're in a rut, have a hard time focusing, this will really help you in your life. Hey guys, welcome to the New Earth Project. I'm David Caxero, and today I want to share a really interesting neuroscience tip. It has really helped me, and I really wish I would have known this earlier on in my life. And when I did learn this, it made so much sense and it made such a difference in the way that I live my life. So this tip I want to share with you is all about dopamine. And dopamine is just a neurotransmitter. So a neurotransmitter, for those that don't know, is a chemical messenger in the brain. It just sends information within your brain. And dopamine, more specifically, is going to be related to higher cognitive functions. So things like inhibiting thoughts, attention, planning, emotions, pain and pleasure. So that reward center of your brain. Dopamine is also going to be related to cognitive processes that are more deliberate or require more effort. So think about self-discipline, being able to focus on something, being able to think critically about something, being mindful of yourself. All of these things require more effort, conscious effort. It doesn't come automatically, right? We need to be deliberate when we're doing these things. So why is this important? Well, we live in a world that has so many opportunities to trigger that reward center of our brain, right? Everywhere you look, almost there's an opportunity to trigger the reward center. It could be food, it could be social media, it can be video games, TV, pornography, whatever it is. All of these things trigger that reward center of our brain. And this can be problematic because if we overstimulate that reward center of our brain, we begin to deplete our dopamine levels. So what implications does this have in our lives? Well, as I said, dopamine is responsible or connected to those cognitive processes that require more conscious effort, right? So self-discipline, focus, mindfulness, critical thinking, all of these things, right? So when we begin to deplete our dopamine levels, it means that those processes are going to become a lot more difficult, right? And when they become difficult, we're going to begin to resort back to automatic processes. So living on autopilot, right? Being more compulsive with our emotions because it requires self-discipline and awareness, mindfulness, to not live compulsively, to kind of delay gratification, right? So it's going to be very, very difficult when we deplete those dopamine stores or those dopamine levels to live consciously, so to speak, to really take charge of yourself or your life. You might notice that you're having a hard time focusing. You might have low motivation. You might be procrastinating a lot, right? These things could all be related to depleted dopamine levels. So what's the solution, I guess? The solution would be to rebalance, be able to find balance or rebalance those dopamine stores, those dopamine levels. And the way we can do that is by becoming aware of what it is that triggers that reward center. What is it that we turn to? For me, it's probably my phone. I go to my phone a lot, scrolling social media, all of that kind of stuff, right? And you're going to notice that when you become aware of what it is that triggers you, could be food or any of those other things that I listed, how often you want to turn to those things to trigger that reward center of your brain. And again, the more we do it, the more we rely on it to feel good, and the more it takes away from our ability to be disciplined, to focus, to be mindful, to all of these other things. And that is going to impact your life in so many ways. I mean, I say discipline is one of the most powerful muscles you can strengthen within yourself. Without discipline, you won't be able to focus. You won't take action on certain things, right? There's a number of ways that a lack of discipline could impact your life. I could probably do a whole video on that. But for now, I want to talk about this dopamine. So becoming aware of how often you turn to this outlet, this thing that is going to trigger that reward center in your brain. Because when you can become aware of how often you do it, you can begin to delay gratification. You can begin to step away from that. There's something called a dopamine detox. And it basically just means that you refrain from triggering that reward center in your brain. And in doing that, those dopamine levels come back into balance, okay? They won't be depleted anymore, which means that self-discipline, focus, mindfulness, critical thinking, all those things that I've listed are not going to be nearly as difficult. You're going to have that dopamine back in your brain. Those levels are going to be back up to where they should be. So this is something that's really helped me in my life, becoming aware of just how the mind works from that neuroscience perspective and how it can really impact and has impacted the way I've lived my life. And why, if I ever find that, oh, I've spent a lot of time on my phone within the last week, my screen time has gone up, why I feel like I don't have a lot of motivation, why I'm procrastinating a lot, why I feel like I can't focus. I'm not saying dopamine is the only reason for those things. There could be a number of other reasons, but I think depleting those dopamine levels has a big part, a big hand in why that those things might be. So I hope this helps you in your life the same way it has helped me in my life. Really ask yourself, what is it that you're turning to trigger that reward center of your brain, and how often are you turning to it? And then you can begin to take your control back. It's not easy to do this, by the way. It's quite difficult. But when you can start this process of delaying gratification and understanding that, you're depleting your dopamine levels and have the impacts that's going to have, you can begin to take your power back. So hopefully this helps you in your life, and I'll see you for the next video.